Okay, welcome to the RSP film room. It's been a long time since I've been doing any film rooms, but I've been wanting to do one for a while and bring it back on. And the first person to join me back from the hiatus of this RSP film room was a guest I've wanted to have on since about last year because I've seen her work on Twitter a good bit in just doing a lot of great film analysis. She works at the SB Nation Film Room and Fourth and John, and she is a former football player, played running back and cornerback, among a few other positions. And I'm actually quite envious and have to say this about Eagles fans because, I will never have a bad thing to say about Eagles fans again because when someone's mom trains their daughter to like watch tape using using video clips and rewinding and going through all that stuff, major props to Eagles fans. So let's welcome Laurie Fitzpatrick to the show. Welcome aboard here.
Hey, how's it going, Matt?
It's going good. It's a pleasure to have you on. If you don't mind, we're going to watch DJ Chark, and we're going to probably go through. I would imagine as many as a dozen clips, or how many we can go through here with the time that we have. What about DJ Chark was interesting to you that you wanted to get a chance for us to watch this together?
Well, a couple things. Just him as a player, his speed, number one. Um, he's his ability to like use his size to be able to jump over defenders and kind of use his body. Like he's a very good route runner when it comes to trying to create space, which is good. But honestly, him being drafted by the Jaguars is really interesting because they have so many young guys. I wanted to kind of break down and see how he's going to fit within their scheme, maybe being a punt returner, a kick returner, or maybe just go over his value, maybe a trade in the future because there's so many good players, so many young receivers coming out of Jacksonville right now. I'm not sure if he's one to stick around or not. And NCAA college film is so hard to get my hands on. So I wanted to really look at more of the negative things about him, more more than what I see now, which is basically highlights. And I want to be able to go over the double moves that he's able to do and his separation while in running a really deep route because honestly the cameras don't show that on the college film. And so I wanted to just dive a little bit more deeper into that.
Great, great. Now, just out of curiosity, I mean, you mentioned all that depth that Jacksonville has, and I'm certainly, I've been in the past. I remember when Rashad Green came out, and I kind of liked him as a slot receiver, and then you build on
Mm-hmm.
that with guy, and I was always an Alan Hearns fan, and now he's gone. But Westbrook has been a nice player in terms of what he brought to the table, and then you have Keelan Cole, who was such a major
Yeah.
surprise. And then we haven't even talked about Marquise Lee or
Yep.
bringing in Moncrief and all of that. So, what do
That's what I
you?
was going to mention next.
Yeah, I mean, who are guys that you like at the top of this depth chart right now, and who are you trying to keep your eye on in addition to Chark? I mean, how do you think this depth chart is gonna kind of shake out if you had to take a stab at it?
Well, it's tough because it seems like a lot of these guys on the team have the same build. They're slender, they're long, but not that long. It's like they're all around 6 feet. DJ is the biggest receiver that is going to be pretty much on the whole, wide receiver core. Um, Mercedes Lewis was, I think he was 6'6" or 6'5", 6'6", so he was the big man, and they lost him. So I think that maybe Westbrook is very short, but I think Lee's really good player that has gotten better. He's gotten in the weight room. That was his main problem, was kind of being more physical, and he did a really good job of coming into training camp this year and looking just a lot bigger in general. And that's what I think is going to carry him, hopefully DJ and Keelan Cole into the Jaguar core wide receivers, along with Moncrief too. But I think it's the slender stature type of guys that might not be here as long as we hope, or not we, but as long as Jacksonville hopes. So
No, that makes sense, and it's interesting because I think as we get into this study of Chark, we'll get a we'll get a chance to talk a little bit more about scheme and what Jacksonville's looking for and some of the things that Laurie's observed about the team. And, you know, for those of you who may not be completely familiar with the RSP film room, because it's been a while since we've done this, this is just two folks watching tape, getting a chance to just talk about what they see, exchange ideas about, you know, what from our own perspectives of watching film. And so it's our way of learning together, and hopefully you get a chance to watch as well. So we're going to watch the heck out of probably one play, talk about it till it's basically we've beaten it into the ground, and then we'll go on to the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here and make sure
those little things excite me, Matt.
See, there you go. I'm the same way. We're a couple of geeks on a deserted island here of film, like we were talking about yesterday, because it's kind of funny. Yeah. Let's share the screen, see if we can get that here, and we'll watch our first one. All right, so let's pull this first one up. And as Laurie supplied some film that she observed, I supplied some that I observed, and we're just kind of compare notes here on what we see. So if you want, walk me through this first one here. We'll play it through one time, and then and hopefully we can get it at a speed that'll be a little bit easier to see.
Yeah, it seems a little choppy.
Yeah, it is a little choppy here. So let's see if we can it may be a little bit easier to do as we go through some of the YouTube stuff, but we'll give this a look here. It looks like what we've got going on here is certainly a contested play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's coming off, and this is a lot of his successful plays as a receiver are against the receivers that are playing off. So him going against press is something really interesting that I want to keep looking at, because obviously he's fast enough to get off the line and beat anybody, but how physical is he when it comes to him getting off the line?
Yeah.
That's something that's questionable right now.
Absolutely, because it seems so much respected his size and his speed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have little moments like this. I mean, the thing that's interesting to me about even just like this first play, even though it's a little bit choppy here for us to see, is his willingness he's good at being able to get his back to the defender, mm-hmm. and being able to turn late in plays and high point the ball. So, I mean, he knows how to use his height.
Yeah, he's really good at those front shoulder receptions, and which is great. Or yeah, not back shoulder. It's literally he's turning in, and half of the time the corners are not prepared for it to be an underthrown pass, but that's the way they intend to play it. And I think that's because his size, with being 6'3", and his ability to kind of, like you said, put his back to the defender, that's really how they plan the play to go. So he's really good at getting the separation and the awareness of when to turn and how to adjust his body to catch it. But honestly, I want to see more fades at him. Hopefully, Blake can get the ball down to him in training camp this offseason. So that's what I'm looking forward to also.
Yeah, and I'm glad you pointed out this play as well and talked about the difference between like a back shoulder and front shoulder look. And then on top of this is one of the best exposures I've seen of him actually catching a ball of this type with his hands.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a lot of that with him. So, and a lot of the exposures I show kind of point that out. So this right there is something we're going to have to remember, because I think down the line you'll see. I have some of the clips I'm showing. He doesn't do that. So it's
no the body catch thing. I have. Don't worry, when you're ready, I'm ready to go into it, because I know exactly. I feel hopefully it's on purpose, because yeah. Don't worry, when we go over slants, talk about some body catches, but I like this here because against zone, I think he's really good at noticing and really getting in between the second and third level of the defenders. It's perfect positioning here, the perfect way to run the route. Then it's really just good rapport between you and the quarterback. So
yeah, no, that's a great thing to point out. I mean, when it comes to running zone routes, I mean, I think a lot of people just think that it's just an easy thing to do because it's just open space, but you have to be so good at being able to gauge where that spot is, because you're running at full speed, or you're running at 3/4 speed even, and even that's enough that, I mean, if you stop or you or you hesitate or you get off track a little bit and alter your depth late, you're going to be off. You're going to be off target with the timing of the throw.
Yeah, definitely. And that also brings to like different shades of the D back, because if he's shaded inside, then that's maybe a seam route. If he's shaded outside, then it's more of a deep corner. And so like those are just the things that you have to know, and you as a quarterback and a wide receiver, you have to be on the same page, because honestly, those you have to see that before the play even starts. So that's just him and Blake getting on the same page. So hopefully Blake will be able to see that. Those are the things that Jaguar fans I know have mentioned.
And when you look at this play in particular, I mean, is Chark looking over at this far side defensive back near the hash, or is he looking more towards, the more immediate players at this point? I mean, what is he reading, do you think, before the
honestly? I don't think either of those. I think it's the guy on the other hash.
This guy
if
here.
He's gonna drop no
Oh no, this guy
up at the top of the screen, if he's gonna drop back or not, because there's not a wide receiver up there. So I think maybe he's actually looking at him to see if he's gonna drop back in coverage.
That's a fantastic, great point. I didn't even think about him over here, and that's great, and that makes total sense, because I mean
there you go, right there. And what does he do? He drops back, because DJ watched film. He knows that guy's going to drop back, so he's waiting. He knew he was a little bit too far up, and so he had him on the deep route. It was wide open.
That's fantastic. That's a great observation. And you can see him, I mean, just the angle of that drop, and he's looking right there.
Yeah, he's still looking right at him.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Great. That's great.
Yeah, he's eyeing him up. Well, but honestly, hopefully, see, that's the thing. I don't like when players telegraph where they're going to go. I don't like that, because the safeties can see where he's looking.
Yeah.
So is he looking at that? I guess it would. I don't know if that's a nickel corner, if that's an outside linebacker, or it's a safety coming up. Honestly, I can't really tell his number. But is he looking at him to make sure the quarterback looks at him to see, like, look at this guy, he's all the way up there, that's wide open? Or is he looking at him to really observe where he's going? Because sometimes you don't know.
Yeah, and that's true.
And I don't like that. The safeties in the NFL, they may read that and say, oh, he's telegraphing where he's going to go. So that's something he's got to watch out for.
Yeah, and I would have to think that in order to disguise your route like this on that level, it would have to come to, is it something that when you disguise it, you just say, listen, I'm looking at him and I'm going to count on him to drop? Because I would think that, I mean, if I were looking at this and I were thinking, okay, how do I coach a receiver on how to do this? I would think it doesn't matter whether this guy drops or not. It's really about who the deep guy is, because on that level, if you get enough depth on the route, it doesn't matter where this guy's here. The quarterback's got to read that. So that's not your responsibility to read him as much as it is just to read the guy who's going to be in that zone back there and get as much depth as comfortable there.
Yeah, and he's also looking at the guy up towards the line to maybe say, look, I'm going to be one-on-one by the time I run my route. This guy is all the way up there. That's just one-on-one situation for the fastest wide receiver coming out of the draft, and you got him deep, and he's 6'3". That's a perfect matchup right there.
Yeah.
His eyes are probably getting big just seeing that guy creep up.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I'm not a fan of with him in this particular play, and I see this a lot in his tape, is just and you see it with so many receivers, especially when they're the superior athlete on the field, is that let me try and make a move instead of just continue up the sideline.
Yeah. I'm going to defend him a little bit here. And honestly, how many times did he get the ball that year in 2017? He's probably just trying to make the most of it, because they got Goose. I'm sorry. I like to call him Juice, but, obviously the running back's getting majority of the carries.
Sure.
So when he gets the ball, he's probably just trying to, I'm going to try to make a big play, make the most out of it, get as many seconds as I can with this pigskin, because it's not going to come back.
Sure. No, and that makes total sense. And I would say that, you look at this scenario, is it a big deal? It's not. But and
Yeah.
especially after how many yards he's gained, it's not like he's trying to get a first down here. So you have an excellent
Yeah.
point about that. I mean, if the flag were somewhere, the marker were somewhere, within a yard or two of this, and he's dancing around it, that would be different. So
Yeah. I mean, I would scream at him if this was an NFL play. I would yell at him to get out of bounds. No doubt. Like I hate guys that do that. They just the risk of the injury is so much higher. Like, don't be Superman. You don't need to be a hero. Just go out of bounds.
right, right.
Mm,
Okay, well, let's look into the next one here. Let's move on. Let's see what we got here.
looks like.
All right, we're gonna go. All right,
Oh yeah,
got some nice
fancy.
diagram going on here. There we go.
Oh wow, that's just bad defense.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a good combination and they like to run this play a lot, or a variation of this play where they motion him across,
Hmm.
and be able to find a mismatch or a blown coverage.
Yeah, because then there's so many adjustments that have to be made in the secondary, and well, wheel routes are my favorite routes ever. So that's just it's sometimes they run that in like a fake jet sweep. They'll put him on, but honestly, yeah, like you said, they're just looking for mismatches, and he really didn't have to even do much there.
Yeah,
But that's a similar play that the Jaguars run.
yeah,
Very similar.
and they also, I mean, one of the other things that it's kind of interesting that they do also on the inside, I notice a lot, is kind of they use an outside guy to cross in with the slot man, and they do use some play action with that and get the slot man free on the deep crosser, behind those
Hmm.
linebackers, but like well into the secondary. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. They like to run that against like man, but then single high safety because then he has to make a decision. He has to pick somebody,
yeah,
and so usually one of those guys are open. So
so
I love his speed in the open field.
yeah, yeah, it's definitely nice. Let me see what's going on here. What do we have? Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, he's got some great. He definitely has some wheels here. We're gonna see some of that on display in a minute. It looks like.
See, what I like about him is his ability to track the ball and not lose stride. It's it's a beautiful thing to see. Sometimes he turns his head a little too early, and that will in the if he's doing that in the NFL, he's going to give the corners way too much time to turn around and track the ball.
Yeah, but what's
But
funny?
his ability to not lose stride is actually pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and we'll see probably a play later that kind of impressed me about him in the same vein, which was he makes some nice late adjustments. There's one where he fades away at the last moment, and it's so sudden in the way that he does it that
Mhm.
I was actually quite impressed with how he kind of disguised that. And I don't think it was an issue of, oh, I tracked this, I see what's happening here rather late. It wasn't a late
Mhm.
deal. I think it was really conscious of him saying, okay, this man's playing tight to my chest, and I've got my chest turned into him. And then as the ball arrived at like the last moment, once it was overhead, he just backed away 2 steps and was able to make the play.
Mhm.
But yeah, he's someone you can't give him. You can't give him much room here. Let's look at what he does here. Oh, so
Let's
we,
see. Yeah, he's shading him kind of on the inside.
yeah,
He's giving him the sideline.
yeah,
I mean, and I know you want to as a corner. You're kind of using that as your 12th man. That's what you're taught. But don't stand so close to somebody that's running 4-3.
yeah. And if
You
you
know,
are, and if you are,
angle it.
yeah, or and you've got to, I would think you have to be more physical than that if you're going to dare be that close. And I know that
Mhm.
playing man though, that's quite a risk. So, especially if you're a Chattanooga cornerback, I would imagine that, you know, you would have to be pretty darn physical and feel comfortable about keeping up with a guy of his speed to play this kind of position.
Yeah. I mean, I can't knock his confidence, but he totally, yeah, he was able to kind of put his arm out a little. I think there's another angle on that play too.
Okay, let's take a look and see.
Hopefully. Yeah, here you go.
Yep. Kind of frames that kind of a little bit of a, just that arm just out just enough before the ball arrives. And you see that a lot with
Yeah.
a lot of pro players being able to do that well.
Yeah. And once again, it's thrown over the front shoulder. And the defender's even on his front shoulder.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the corners aren't going to be this bad though in
No.
the NFL. That's what's a little scary. You know, there are a lot of times where he's telegraphing the time he's going to get it, because I think he does turn his head a little bit too early, and that's going to help any corner that is playing against you. But honestly, I don't know if he's doing that because maybe the quarterback isn't so good, so he has to like really adjust, like you said.
Yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah.
has no idea where it's going to go.
And then, and yeah, and I think that with most receivers, I mean, you want at this stage, you don't see enough real press release work from a lot of these guys, and when they do show it, they tend to have one or two moves that they really lean on so much that it becomes, pretty easy for a team an opponent to scout. But
Hmm.
but at this stage, you're right. I mean, I'm not seeing much. We haven't seen much with him, and from what I saw, you just on more extensive viewings, I haven't seen much from him as in terms of his releases. But this kind of thing, at least knowing
Yeah.
that he can make these contested plays when he's got his back to the defender.
Hmm. Yeah, like I just love his ability to really continue to run in stride,
Yeah,
because that's something a lot of receivers slow down once they turn their head. So once he gets that little bit of space, he knows he can just run right by anybody.
yeah,
And he's 6'3". He's got long limbs.
yeah. And your stride's different. It's funny. I was talking with Gene Clemens at Football Game Plan yesterday about it, and Gene was a wide receiver at Pittsburgh State, um, and I believe I don't know if he still does, but I believe he holds their single season record. And he was talking about stride length with me yesterday, and he's talking about how a guy like Randy Moss at 6'3", 6'4", his stride length was so long that it's just hard to gauge. It's sometimes harder for cornerbacks to gauge that stride length. But then he said what was
Hmm.
even more interesting about that, because I don't know whether he or I brought up Steve Smith, but because we were talking about him being an outside receiver, and he said, that's the funny thing about Steve Smith is what people don't realize is he also had a very long stride length in a very short frame, and that threw
Yeah.
people off a great deal because of how he
Hmm.
could eat up a cushion of a defender, with that long stride length.
Yeah, and he used his strength and his toughness to an advantage when DBs tried to get up on him. He was a really tough wide receiver when it came to blocking him. So if they gave him a little bit of space, then that's where he would utilize the other part of his talent, which was good.
Yeah, I mean he was an absolute game wrecker. He's one of my favorite players of all time for sure. And let's see what we got going on here. Let's move on to the next look that we have. So we got a little rollout going on here. All right, so it
Hmm.
looks like we're gonna get a chance to see him on a lower throw.
Hmm. And that's the body catches you're talking about right there.
Yeah, and see this one I would defend, to be honest, because I think that on a throw that's at waist level and it's low like that, and you're coming back to it. I
Hmm.
mean, he does at least get his hands out, and trying to guide that in a little bit more. So I'm a little more, I'm cooler with a guy who's making a catch at the waist or below low, and he's got his hands at least out here at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's actually seeing it in and
Yeah,
and really making sure that it doesn't come out, which is good.
Yeah, so I feel good. What I like about this is, when you look at taller guys, I mean, I don't know. I want to see more of how good he is on a lower throw like this because,
Yeah.
he kind of comes to the ground right away. And at the
Yeah, I
same,
was gonna say that.
yeah.
Does he need to be on the ground here? Come on.
Right. And to me, it's like some of these taller receivers, I want to see how low they can go and keep their balance. And
Hmm.
especially when you're near the line of scrimmage like this, coming back to a ball. I mean, this is a kind of one of those check down situations at this point anyway, I think, as far as, well, it's actually a
Yeah.
fairly quick throw, but something must have not have been, either the quarterback didn't see anything more or got
Hmm.
impatient because this was on the third step of the roll.
Yeah.
He kind of
Ugh.
hurried this.
Yeah, and it was a really bad throw. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, he was look at him. He's just not even. He didn't even have any pressure, and he's throwing it with the worst footwork and mechanics ever. What is he doing?
Yeah, and when you think about it, I mean, we've got this backside receiver he could still wait on. He has a deeper
Hmm.
receiver that he could probably be looking at here that's going to be working further downfield. I think that was the stack receiver that was that guy. And
Hmm.
he was looking to Chark all the way. I mean, this is what, the second, third, fourth, fifth, maybe the fifth step. See how many steps he's actually taken from the snap here. Because usually you're throwing on like 3, 5, 7, and 9 on a
Yeah.
rollout. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's a seventh throw. So
Mm.
maybe I'm being a little too mean to him about that. But
I mean, but the rollout though, look at that. This is not good.
yeah,
He he has to at least be square. Come on. What do
yeah,
you or yeah.
that's true. You're right. I mean, yeah. I mean, his hips and his frame are just kind of very much at
It's
the
like
sideline.
throwing very lackadaisical. If I was that quarterback's coach, I would yell at him for an hour for that throw.
So yeah, I mean, I think with him we'll see. I mean, I'd like to see more lower. I'd definitely like to see more lower targets with him.
Hmm.
So that's a nice,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, that's good. Is it as choppy as you see it, or
yeah.
because for
It's
me it's pretty choppy.
yeah. These show up fairly choppy on Twitter, and I probably
Hmm.
neglected to mention that with the videos. But what we'll do is once we get through some of these, some of the we'll do some of the YouTube videos, and we'll set them at a slower speed, and they won't be quite as choppy. But they tend to be a little bit choppy on this kind of format, unfortunately. And then I'm kind of stopping. I'm trying to stop it
Look,
and go it a little bit. Is that
I love how he opens up his whole body to catch that in the middle of the field with the safety coming. Look at that. His
yeah,
whole body is open there. That's the rib.
yeah,
That's good. I mean, he's not afraid to take a hit.
yeah, absolutely. And and again, it's another example of him when he has to, he can fully extend
Hmm.
and catch with his hands, and he's not trying to trap a ball. I mean, this one he couldn't trap if he wanted to. Now the question is did he?
Exactly.
And there's a what's interesting about these throws is sometimes I think I've heard some people criticize receivers for leaving their feet to catch certain balls, and even if I would say he was in that area where he probably had to leave his feet here, but even if
Yeah.
he even if he didn't, I would think, I mean, I didn't play as much as you did. I mean, I just played with friends and did that kind of thing, but I've been flipped a time or two going up for a ball, and
Oh yeah.
I've always found that you that when your feet are on the ground and you take a hit, it's a little more damaging than when you're airborne. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because it seems like the
Yeah.
force goes through your body a little bit more and you're not grounded into anything. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's true. And it's kind of why like the whole ice skating thing with like leaving their feet and sometimes they jump a little bit more than they should. I don't know why I'm talking about ice hockey, but
But
yeah,
no,
no,
other sports
it's
relate.
just like it's an instinct. Yeah. It's like sometimes it's instinct to just jump. But yeah, like you said, sometimes it's based off of fear.
Yeah.
But other times it's really to just be able to absorb the hit. And if you jump, then that makes the tackler have to adjust, and maybe he has to hit higher, so it's not as hard of a hit too.
That's a good point. It's a really good point. Let's see what we have with this next one here going through. All right. Yeah, and like you said, really smooth, just really smooth in the open field.
Oh, yeah. Look at that! Look at that stride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks like he's making, far fewer steps than the guy that he's separating from right here, just with those long
Yeah.
legs. So let's look. Let me see if I can get it to a
He's
point where.
he's even holding it high and tight. It's in the correct arm. I mean, all the fundamentals are definitely there.
Yeah, and that's a good low hands catch. I mean, you got it at the waist. That one's another fine one that makes sense to me.
Hmm.
And this is a really nice job of just turning up field and getting and then switching the ball.
Yeah. And it was early too. It was early enough, and I like his hip movements. It was just really fluid.
Yeah,
He's able to really turn. I I know that when you refer to turning the corner, usually it's the running back, and you're talking about him going outside the line. But when you're going against DBs, and you have to take the right angle, so he's so fast that he can just take it a little bit sooner and just beat him in a foot race and go
yeah,
all the way upfield. So I really like that.
yeah. Me too. And it's funny. This is coincidental, and but it's
Mm,
a happy
mm,
coincidence that I froze it here, because I was watching film of Chris Johnson earlier this month, and there was a play where I was watching him against Tampa Bay, and there was penetration from I think the defensive tackle on the right side or defensive end into the backfield as he was taking the exchange. And as he was going through the exchange, he read that, and and you could see him turn his foot to the sideline just like that, so that it was
mm.
like, in this case, it's like he turned his foot outside, so it got his hips turned very easily, and
Hmm.
it just shows you kind of what that mobility and flexibility looks like when you're able to make that kind of a dip.
Yeah, like, mm, no, definitely. And that's his hips just being so flexible and being able to. He knows his speed too. That's a good thing.
Yeah,
And sometimes it's something you discover a little bit too late. And maybe your route running could always be improved if you realize your speed, because you don't have to make harder cuts. You can be more fluid in making those cuts because your lateral movement is just so fluid. The DB has to really make the decision early. He can't hesitate. So
that was a good
and
point.
that's what he's doing here. He's turning his foot just like you said, and he's just kind of cheating in a way.
Yeah, and that's what makes exceptional players do things that other guys can't. I mean, I'll reference back to Gene, because Gene and I were talking. He was talking about Deion Sanders and saying how Deion Sanders basically ruined a bunch of cornerbacks who are now playing in the league because of the fact that Deion basically played, with both feet together, basically squaring off against you. And when he played tight, and a lot of cornerbacks try to do that nowadays and can't do it at all, or they try to jam someone and try and do anything, and they just let guys go. And I saw something in like a Bears practice today where people were praising Anthony Miller and how he was beating Prince Amukamara, I believe, where Prince jammed him. And you're thinking, in practice, one thing is it's practice, and where he was playing, it would be expected to have somebody help out on top. So what he was doing made sense. What Prince was doing made sense. But on the other hand, you could also see where he was kind of like feet together, kind of Deion Sanders style stance, and he tried to
Yeah.
jam, and he basically gave up the separation very easily. And I thought about Gene, showing that yesterday when we were having a
Yeah.
conversation. So
I I have some opinions on Prince. And I'm not a fan. So I don't think that that's a practice thing. I think that is him.
yeah, yeah,
And people that disagree with me, people really like Prince. He was productive on the Giants, but he played on the Jags. And I just don't really like him as a corner, but
yeah,
to each their own.
right. So what do we have here? Going let's get a little curl here. It looks like. Let's see where it hit. Let's see.
Ooh, the body catches. Let's see what this is.
And see, this one I also would defend because, like, it's maybe a little bit more of a trap on this one. So yeah, not so great, but he does have his hands out, and it is a lower throw, so I'm not too worried about that. And it was a fairly nice. Let's look at the turn. How quick this turn was. I mean, again, he's got a guy playing way off him.
Yeah, like look how far away. What I would rather see him do is go to the ball a little bit more. Instead of catching it with your body, you're letting it come to you. If he came to the ball and then just tucked it right in, he could stiff arm that. The corner's pretty close to him, but no, he's still able to get the turn. I think if he came to the ball a little bit more and used his hands instead of his body, yeah, he barely got off of him. It's a little choppy, so it's hard to.
It is. I know it is. I'm having an easier time than you are probably with these particular ones that we're looking at, but because the ball's out about right now, and here he is where he's turned. So now he's turned, and the ball's about I think
40?
I can see the ball's about where the 40 is. So could he take an extra step? Maybe, yeah.
Maybe.
And maybe if he extends his arms.
Extend his arms. Yeah. Just try that, Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, DJ.
And there's a nice job of him extending his arms on this particular play. Now it's an off-target throw a little bit. As you can see, there's the ball here.
Yeah, and he's a little bit farther away. Yeah, he has to kind of reach for that. Well, the quarterback kind of helped him a little bit, to be honest. He made him turn.
Yeah, good lead outside, right? But what's nice to know is enough of the tape that you're supplying here really shows that he can hands catch. It's not there are certain types of targets where he prefers to kind of trap or underhand bucket catch the ball. And he does it a lot, he does it a lot on some of these types of plays, but when he has to, he can really do it. So for me, I look at that as a promising thing. It's just that it's about now, where he is on the field and being aware of what, earning position where he consistently does that, as opposed to maybe being a little bit more passive, like we've seen on some of these plays where you could argue that he might be a little passive.
Yeah, and honestly, that was my argument against the people that were screaming that he has no hands because of that. But a lot of the time, see right there, it's more of like a secure catch.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't need to use his body here. He could just catch it with his hands. So that one's a little bit tougher, but generally it's when he's in the middle of the field or when he's doing a curl route where he's turning and the ball is already out of the quarterback's hands, and so he's just really securing it.
Yeah.
But when it's off target, he can show that he can absolutely catch it with his fingertips.
And this is another example of that. I mean, you can see this one. I don't know, this one's hard to see. I can't even really see whether he traps that one or he gets his hand on it. We've got a few others here. Let's take a look at some of those. But that's a nice little tight window play here. But let's move on and look at. Let's see. Here's one where you're showing him going up and get. And this is one where the bucket catch is really obvious. Where you're like, dude, seriously,
Yeah.
And so many receivers do this in the college game right now, and it's like, okay. Again, fingertips up and your palms out to the ball on these types of high throws, it would be, and this is just a little bit more of a passive play. I mean, he cuts off the defender well, to get that position, stops well. That's great.
Yeah, like him and the quarterback just love those inside routes. It's throws, I should say. It's when the quarterback or corner least expects it, so he doesn't have a chance to really adjust. This is what I like here. I like that the corner. Look at all that hand movement that they got there. They're playing patty cake, and he's still able to get off of them.
Yeah, does a really nice job of sliding off late, and it's just that thing right there. It's just like, I wish they'd adjust, but I
Hmm.
see this so commonly, and I'm just kind of like, and you see in the NFL when this happens, there's just so many things that can go against you when you have an underhand technique there because the defender can lift his hand up and just hit the ball up, and because you have your hands under the ball instead of your paw, the
Yeah.
backs of your hands kind of being the backstop for that kind of momentum of someone hitting the ball, it can just go right through the grip. So that's kind of a
Yeah. Like, eh, imagine you're a receiver and you're catching it like this. That corner, number one, he should be sticking his arm straight up, and you want to put your hand in his face
yeah,
because you want to prevent him from seeing. Because usually your hands are out, and so you need to see where the ball is coming.
yeah,
And so if he just stuck his hand up, I mean, his obviously his back is turned, so it's hard to stick your arm straight up. But you're not going to stick your arm out. There's going to be better corners in the NFL that if you catch the ball like that, well, you're not going to catch it.
yeah. And more often you're going to have a corner who's probably, if he's at this type of a position on Chark, he's looking back for the ball. And he's probably playing the ball at this point as opposed to trying to play the man. And it
Yeah.
seems like he's playing the man, and that's why he's late to it.
Yep. It seems like he knows his route, and so he's kind of like going along. And yeah, exactly, exactly like you say. So that's why I do like how he really, not that the catching has anything to do with that, but I love his how he secures the ball too, especially on that last sideline catch. Well, not the last one, about 4 or 5 clips ago,
Yeah,
where he catches it on the sideline and he really just he holds it like really secure. So even if a corner was near him, he wouldn't be able to get it out.
yeah,
He takes his whole back and body and head and kind of just really cuffs it.
yeah. And it's one of those. Let me see if I can reset this one and see if it'll play again, and I'll advance it. Oh,
Is
this
this a
is
different?
this is a different one. Okay, and this was there. It
Oh,
is.
that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
And we'll just kind of let it play through a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the comfort against tight coverage is nice. Even it's just the techniques have to improve.
Hmm.
I mean, all this hand fighting and everything, that's great. I mean, you get some players who are very technically sound though, and when they get when they get played tight like this, they lose
Hmm.
concentration, they lose focus. And we
Yeah.
can see with this particular play, that that's not the case for him at all. So now we get to see him what looks like front side to the right.
It's a little bit deeper than
Yeah.
where that arrow ends.
But that's all right. We got the idea.
His field awareness
Oh,
is
and that's sweet.
so good.
Yeah, and just the dragging of the toe instead of trying to tap it in, his ability
Hmm.
to drag that. I've noticed that a couple of times with this tape as well. So you're looking again that this is someone who you can like I didn't understand why he was drafted as high as he was. To be honest, as a looking for if I'm looking at an all around receiver, but for a guy, if you want to say we're going to plug him in and let him go deep, we're going to
Hmm.
use him as an X in a certain way where we know that we can get him one on one, match up one on one with people, and maybe create some scenarios with, our more experienced players to create matchups for him that are allowing him to do what he does best. He
Hmm.
can be dangerous. I mean, like I think of Ted Ginn in that sense. Like Ted Ginn is
Yeah.
Ted Ginn in a in an offense where there's a couple of good receivers on there. Whether it's a receiver or tight end, and you have a quarterback who can get you into good situations with how they're going to adjust the play and read the defense.
Yeah.
That guy can thrive. But I think he reminds me a little bit of Ted Ginn in the sense of role, not necessarily as
Yeah.
player to player.
Yeah. If only Blake had Matthew Stafford's cannon,
Yeah,
that would be great. But he needs to get his size a little bit up, like with his weight. He's only 199, or I think he weighed in at 200, but this 4.3 speed at 6'3" is it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
Oh, here's
absolutely.
another deep.
Oh, and that's great extension for the ball. I remember seeing this play. I forgot about this play. That's a good pick right there. That's a I forgot. I remember. I think I was looking at one time. I remember when I was watching him. I think I watched him against Ole Miss when he was in 2016, and and I saw a lot of plays where his hands technique was really bothering me or just kind of troublesome to me. And I know I need to see more exposures of a variety of things. And then I remember seeing him doing this, and I liked how he still was able to keep his back to the defender on this and just fully extend for the ball. Yeah, so that's some good
I
stuff.
love how he uses his body. I think that he in that play, I think he did that on purpose. To And what I mean by that is I think that he didn't run to catch it in stride like how any receiver would do. He kind of he really he'll how the quarterbacks put it in a place where only what the wide receiver can get it.
Yeah,
I think he made that happen here.
yeah,
He kind of stopped a little bit, and he knew the corner was not looking. He knew the corner was not going to keep. He wasn't going to go for the ball. He's playing the player.
yeah,
So if he just slows down a little bit, the corner will slow down because he expects the ball to be coming. But what does he do? It's a little bit of ahead of him. The corner is behind him, and there you go.
yeah. That's nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I agree with you because it's either one of two things. Either he's getting lucky catching balls where he makes really late adjustments that
Mhm.
I just saw that, I got to do that. I don't think that's the case. Or he's doing what you're describing, and I agree with you, is that he's making these late adjustments consciously.
Yeah. And the only thing I'm not sure of is he tracked the ball, like almost 15 yards on that play. I can't it's hard to determine. It's like he turned his head, I think, at the 30, and he doesn't catch it until past the 20.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's it's good that you can turn your head around and still keep the stride, but on the other hand, in the NFL, I'm not sure. I
I
guess
I guess I
late.
wonder. I'm like what I would counter or just argue, and I don't know. I mean, you may be right about that. I've never really thought about it from that standpoint. I've always thought about it as when the time you bring your hands up to when the ball arrives. Like that's where to me always seemed like the tip off was not so much if
Hmm.
you're looking for it, but if
Yeah.
when you bring your hands up. Like if he brought his hands up at the
Hmm.
25 or any time between the 25 and before he just did at the 20 here, I'd be a little more
Yeah.
concerned about it. And it
Yeah.
was a little, and you can see it was a little early here too, but the fact that he slowed
Hmm.
down and fully extended afterwards
Yeah.
was kind of a cool thing there. So,
Yeah, he's kind of like a baseball player and an outfielder on that play. But to piggyback off of what you're saying, and my favorite route, which is the wheel route, it's a fake flat, and what do you do as a wide receiver? You put your hands up, you look for the ball, and that makes the DB step up. It's the hand fake. The
yeah,
hand fakes, it's crucial. The other thing that you look at as a corner is the eyes. So you look when the eyes get big, it's not just looking for the ball. It's also like when your eyes kind of get big.
yeah,
And it's kind of hard to determine that, oh, well, you're on the field, like nobody's looking at the eyes. Oh no, the DBs are those corners are definitely close enough to see when their eyes get big. It's like that's when they turn their head. So it's I guess it could be either way, definitely. Can you go back to that last play?
yeah, absolutely. Oh, let me get. All right, there we go.
Yeah, in here. Oh yeah, at the top. Oh no, he's taking a jet sweep.
Yeah, but
You see how I think he point to his
yeah,
I like that.
yep,
I like that. I like
yep,
that. Who does that remind you of? From Jacksonville. And Fournette, baby.
yeah, yeah,
Please delegate. please delegate on the field. I love that. I love that.
And there's a good example of him doing it well, where it works out for him. And
Yeah.
he already has the first down. So that's another nice thing. Like if, Marquise Lee earlier in his career would tend to turn he would turn a 10-yard gain into basically a 6-yard gain oftentimes, doing this type of thing or doing something similar to this. But what Chark is really good at is we can see consistently, or at least in the viewings we've seen here, but I've seen this also in his return game, is that when he makes these moves, yeah, he's past the marker. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, and what I really like is his hip movement once again, because when he doesn't juke the defender with his lateral speed, he jukes it with his ability to move his body. Like, look how far he bends his hip on that first cut, and then right here, like, look at his left leg. That's a 90-degree angle right there.
Yeah,
like he's really pushing off his back foot to get as much leverage as he can. I love it. Like, look how deep he is. That's a 45-degree angle with his legs there, and full extension.
And right here, what I really like is he comes to a nice stop with that little plant with that long step, and when you see something like that, I think, okay, right now I see him running routes where he kind of he has those quick stops and quick turns, and they're kind of just a quick smooth turn. But these are elements of being able to execute that hard break, and being able to run dig routes or certain curls or deep outs with a really nice hard break where you can use that speed and then just make that one long step and be able to make that man overrun you. And when he can learn to do that with that 4.3 speed and that height and that stride, he's going to scare a lot of cornerbacks, and he's going to create more separation for himself if he can do that, because you can see he can bend at the hips reasonably deep, and he can make that one long step to come to a quick stop after accelerating. So if he can do that more in his routes as he develops a little bit better, or develops a little bit more as a pro and works on this, then I think that you have something there that's really worthwhile.
Yeah, and what a lot of receivers are taught is to slow down. Kind of a chop step a lot of the time is a part of the fundamentals to slowing your body down, so you're able to make the turn, the change of direction, and really not fall over. Yeah. But with him, he's so long, he's able to slow his body down mid-stride by taking that big stride. And so when he plants his foot to make that turn, his body is already prepared to turn, and the momentum is totally on his side, and he doesn't have to chop step in order to slow down.
Yeah. And we just saw a couple of plays here where I'm going to see if I can get to some of these YouTube plays that aren't as choppy, but there's some, I see some nice job of him being able to extend for the ball again. And then see if we got him up here blocking it all. Oh, no, that's him actually taking the end around here, or the reverse. Let's see that.
Yeah, I thought it was one where he juked somebody also. Thought maybe somebody was going to come at him.
And a good job switching the ball. I mean, just very sound runner in the open field. Nice little balance at the end there.
Yeah. That looked like a body catch, but it was in the middle of the field. Looked maybe a little, I can't say if it was low or not. But yeah, I'd rather take a look at anything you got here on YouTube.
Yeah, we're going to slow them down a little bit and see if it's a little bit easier. And this will allow me also to kind of control this a little bit easier here. We're going to have him a few plays against Auburn here, and this one's looks like we have a little bit of a double move. And let me turn off the audio here. All right. Outside twin right. Going to chop a little arm over there. Nice little turn inside out. Maybe that's still hard to see.
Oh, no.
Is it easy? Yeah, no, he fumbles it. They actually ruled it a fumble.
So this is a slow go?
Yeah, I actually put this. Let's see, what do we have here? So you have him kind of working. Got that
It
inside
looks like
move.
a slant and go,
Yeah, yeah, it is.
but
It
there's
is.
just no cut. He just kind of,
All he does is use a head fake to the inside. Watch the head fake right there. That little turn with the head.
yeah, and look, that safety just bit that so hard. Oh my
Yeah,
God, that's great. That was good head movement by him,
yeah.
for sure. Oh no.
So it was a really efficient right there. And you see that, yeah, like you said, the safety, that's great. And then the ball's underthrown, because if the ball's thrown well, he's gone.
Yeah, and that's probably why he turns his head so early sometimes.
But
But yeah, that safety, he's like, oh man, where's he going? So, oh,
yeah, and you're going to see on the replay here. I think they'll show a replay in
he's
a
like,
minute.
no.
Let's see if we get it. Well, we don't need to see. Well, there you go. Let's move forward here. There we go. Here's a chance with the catch. And see,
Oh,
yeah, there's the trap. Well, like, you don't really need to do that. And then also,
no.
because you
That
trap
was a
it,
terrible trap too. At that, like, oh, jeez, come on.
yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the problem with it. I mean, when you trap, now it's like, now you have to take the extra step of pulling the ball away from your chest to get it into a
Hmm.
position to secure it.
Yep.
And he never does. Because right here, ball's away from his chest. He's trying to put it in under an arm. The defender's able to swat it right through.
Yep. He's not. If he just put his hand on the ball, he would be able to use his fingers and his hands because they're both underneath the ball. When he
Yeah.
catches it like that, he can't get underneath of it to turn it to. Oh my. Yeah. Hopefully, he needs one of those. So on Shark Tank, you got that thing you wear on your chest to hold your arms out. So when you catch it, so come on, man, it's fundamentals. But hey, I would make him do that nonstop. That gives me it makes me cringe.
Yeah. And this is kind of that. And you wonder too, like, I mean, you were a returner. So let me ask
Hmm.
you this. Is it something that you see when you return the ball? I mean, oftentimes you see people field a punt like that or a kick
Yeah.
return like that. Is it possible that it's just when you have certain deep balls, you kind of revert to that, and not think about it, as opposed to, because we saw he knows how to
Yeah.
catch differently than this.
Hmm. Yeah, I think you're right with the whole reverting, but you're always generally a receiver before you're a returner.
Yeah,
But it's when you get scared, kind of, or when guys are coming at you, what you do automatically.
yeah,
And so I think that he probably got the same feeling, or he just really wanted to secure it because your number one fear as a punt returner is to botch the punt.
yeah,
And so he's so wide open, he's probably scared there, where he's like, I got to make sure I catch this. What do I do when I make sure I got to catch it? Catch it like I'm holding a laundry basket,
right.
you know?
I
So
think
I
this.
think I think it's what you said, reverting.
I think he's at the bottom. Yeah, he's at the bottom left here. And what I like about this particular play is, I mean, again, quick to turn upfield. It's a little, again, he traps this ball, and this is a really great example of what you were talking about with corners earlier, because
Hmm.
corners are going to play tighter, and it's not even just playing tighter, it's they're going to be able to jump this route a little faster because they're anticipating. Some of them are going to anticipate this route a little bit more in this break. And if you
Hmm.
don't have your arms extended to attack this ball, that hand's going to get in there. It was only a step difference between him catching this ball and turning it away and it being a defended pass, and maybe two steps away from being an interception and a pick six.
Yeah. Like if you're gonna catch it with your body, at least compensate by going to it. And so that way, when you extend your arms to catch it the proper way, you don't have to go to the ball because your arms provide that space.
Yeah. And then you wonder, and it looks like he has time here because he's just turning and waiting. Here he is
Hmm.
waiting. The ball's
One,
at the 25,
two.
and he's already been waiting for a beat. So now he's
Yeah.
waiting another 2 to 3 beats for that ball.
And he still doesn't move forward. And he
No.
knows the corner is coming out. So he's probably thinking in his head, I'm definitely going to catch this. But on top of that, oh, if I don't move forward, he's going to try to get it. And then that's a clear space for him to get, at least 10 or 20 more yards. But
it's a risk.
Hopefully he doesn't. Yeah, hopefully he doesn't have that confidence in the NFL, because it will be that's pick 6 right there.
Yeah, and that's the difference, and I think that's the difference that a lot of people don't understand about like high school and college ball, is that when you're this athletic as Chark is, you can get away with this stuff, and you may even lean on it a bit. Whereas maybe in the NFL, you turn here, and the ball's in the air, and you start coming back to the ball, and if you can attack the ball and say you're inside the 20 or the 30 here, and you're on the move, you can work against the momentum of the flow of these defenders and work underneath the receiver here and actually work further to the inside and get the first down. And
absolutely.
And not risk that type of an issue. Because I'm sure big old number 57, as quick as he probably is for a linebacker here, he's not going to be able to turn his hips and come back and catch Chark if Chark is actually right here. Where my arrow is. If Chark's here and that defender is like even a step behind, further back, he's going to be able to turn upfield and at least be able to get his pads under the defender if the defender's even going to get a hand on him right around here and extend for that gain. And yes, Chark gains a lot more, but the risk wasn't worth the reward if we're projecting to an NFL lens.
Yeah, and if you look at the corner, he already turned his hips to go to defend the fade route, and it was like he's already starting to run when he look at him, he's already committed to Chark running a fade.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why he's a little bit far off. Well, he's a little behind breaking up that pass.
Yeah, let's take a look at it one more time. Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Like he's halfway between shuffling and running and turning his hips completely, that corner.
Yep. All right, let's see what we got next here. We got about 4 or 5 more here. All right, so, okay, now this is that wheel route where they run it off kind of the jet sweep look. So let's see. Here we go. So we got him at the top of the screen. And here's kind of the running off the coverage here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Jags run this a lot too.
But what's
that corner?
Yeah, but at least compared to Mississippi State, this corner actually picked the right guy to didn't blow the coverage in terms of the assignment of who he was supposed to have. But this was one of those plays. This is where I remember thinking the bucket catch was not a good deal here.
Yeah. Let's see this. See, like his head is, I don't know if he looked straight at all that entire play. If he looked straight ahead. He was like turned his head the whole time.
Yeah. No, I like the arm, using the arm over to get over the shoulder and make sure that you can keep your hands up. But see how he switches his hands right there?
Yeah.
Well, it's like he knew he could. It's almost like, I know what I'm supposed to do, but that's not what I'm going to do. And then he changed his mind again, and he almost lost the ball.
That was interesting. It's like, no. He really wanted to catch that in the basket, but then he realized it was high.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're overthinking, and you see he almost loses that ball because he's like, he's thinking on this play. I mean, that's it's not automatic for him. It's like he's kind of doing a math problem, like calculating, okay, all right, I'm calculating this, bring my hands up. Oh, am I sure I should do that? No, let me just underhand. Oh, no, I can't do that. And
look,
yeah, and the defender, if that defender's close enough to him and was playing, better coverage, he's not catching this ball. He's not catching this ball if Jalen Ramsey's playing him right now, in practice. He's not playing. He might not be playing. He might not be catching his ball if Prince of Mukamara were playing him in practice.
would definitely catch that ball against Prince. Don't dare say that.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, I mean,
I think he's trying to be a little too physical here, and once he's physical, he thinks immediately catching it with his body, and then when it's not thrown when it's not thrown at his chest or his stomach, he has to adjust, and boom, what happened? He almost lost it. Thank God he should endorse those gloves he got on there.
Right. But I mean, it's a wonderful play of athletic ability, and I think this is where I mean, when we go ahead, I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying you're absolutely right. Sometimes I think about picking guys apart so bad, but he did catch it, and
yeah.
But I guess that's our jobs. What we're supposed to do.
It is, and I mean, I think it is because it's like when you think about when we're fans and we're watching the game, we're like, wow, what an awesome catch, and it is. I mean, that's an awesome play, but at the same time, you think about the level of mistakes and how low the margin of error is in the NFL. You got to nitpick this stuff because he may get away with this in the NFL, and there are players who do get away with it occasionally, but the best players are the most technically sound, and they're the ones that have this low margin for error, and they have this stuff figured out. They don't do this as often. This doesn't happen. And with Chark, we're seeing this as a recurring theme with him. So I think it's fair to say, yeah, I mean, he's an NFL athlete. He makes NFL receptions. Is he making starter level reception? Is he doing starter level work at this stage? And I think the answer is no, not yet. But you can see where that path is. And that doesn't mean that he's a bad prospect. It just means that he's got work to do.
Yeah, no, and there are a lot of times where, you try to give a player a benefit of the doubt because maybe he knows that the corners aren't as good. So maybe he can be a little bit more lazy, or he can try to compensate with his toughness. And then you watch him in the Senior Bowl, and he was outstanding. And that's the best of the best players. That's what the NFL is.
Yeah.
The best of the best of, all of the leagues that you play against, or all the conferences. And, he did well. So it's so, this is really why I wanted to look at him, because there's so many like inconsistencies.
Yeah. And
he's consistently inconsistent.
Yeah. But what's cool is when you talk about the Senior Bowl is, he performed well in that environment. So does that tell us that he's a player who can absorb lessons quickly and learn? I mean, we think about a guy like Mike Wallace when he went to the Senior Bowl and telling people he was at Ole Miss that he learned more at the Senior Bowl about running routes than he did his whole career at Ole Miss. So, and initially with Pittsburgh, he performed very well. It was more of a role that wasn't maybe, a fully dimensional receiver, but he was extremely productive, and he was, I mean, you don't take anything away from him for being able to produce on that level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he was definitely a good receiver. Now, well, especially for Pittsburgh. But that makes me think, who is that Senior Bowl coach?
Right.
He's teaching somebody the right things.
And this is that play that I was referring to where he makes a very late adjustment. Watch him back off right here. See that shift and how quick it was?
Yeah.
And so it's like you can see like I think that's the difference between that catch where he flips his hands 3 times, and that's late, and that's the accident. And I think that the rest of the ones that, like you've pointed out, and that this one here was much more intentional of an adjustment.
Yeah. Now, I would like to. Are you able to play that back on the view from up high?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I would really like to see where the ball is thrown initially here. Is it to the outside? No, I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, it's kind of dying, and it just kind of died quickly inside here.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to, hate on Blake, but Blake is not throwing bullets. Yeah. So there are times where there's going to be a floater.
Yeah.
He's gonna have to make that adjustment.
I mean, we saw a lot of those types of throws to D.D. Westbrook down the stretch, on third downs where he and Westbrook was coming close to making some of these plays, but sometimes did, sometimes didn't. I did.
Yeah, he couldn't bring it in.
Yeah, I did enjoy the confidence that they showed in him to make those types of plays, in those
Yeah.
situations for a rookie.
No, I think that having those guys step up as rookies and wide receivers without a ton of experience, they could actually pull Blake into a leader mode
Yeah,
instead of when he was with Allen Robinson and Hearns, because
they
they
were
really
peers
pointed
in a
out.
sense. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. They pointed out when he wasn't making those throws, and as a quarterback that doesn't have a lot of confidence, and you have 4 wins in 4 years, it's like, it's like there's no confidence. But as rookies, they're gonna look up to him no matter what. So
yeah.
back to DJ.
No, no, no problem. And but that's interesting to talk about because I mean, I knew someone who, what I was told about Blake Bortles was that between year one and year two, he worked very hard. He worked with Tom House. He did a lot of, he basically went out somewhere to work, stayed in his own house, and basically went home and studied and worked. Between year two and year three, I heard he didn't work with Tom House, and where he went probably wasn't where he should be going
Yeah.
on a regular basis. And then last year, between off season and last year, he worked hard. They gave him an extension. They gave him kind of said, okay, we're giving you another shot here with
Yeah.
this, and he made good on it.
Yeah. No, I think it was something that he really needed to prove himself, and I can't say I'm surprised they gave him another shot, because he had so many different offensive coordinators,
Yeah,
and so I think Tom really made the right decision also
yeah.
to really give him a better chance and kind of scheme the offense and tailor it to him. Don't make him do things that's unachievable. Know his talent and then utilize it the
Yeah,
most efficient way.
absolutely. Because you look at guys like Jed Fish, who is known for being a stickler for how he wants things run, but things are fairly complex too, and that's and that can be very difficult. And I've heard he can be somewhat intractable with adjusting. And sometimes you have that problems with coaches, but here's a nice job of again just turning those hips and getting upfield.
Yeah. I think his 10-yard speed is astonishing. Like his first couple strides, let's see how many steps he takes. 1, 2. It was a little choppy,
Yeah,
but
let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 8 to cover 10, but he's also having to avoid defenders
2,
here.
3. Yeah. Yeah, and that time he actually went out of bounds a little bit.
Yeah.
Shoes are untied. Somebody, you have another shoelace, Ace Robinson in here.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Both of those shoes. That's funny.
All right,
It's the little things.
yeah, right. All right, let's round the stretch here. Take a look at a few more. Top of the screen. This one's going a little fast. Oh, this was a nice play. I forgot about this. Nice drag.
Oh, that's a field awareness that gets me giddy right there.
Yeah.
Look at that. He's able to drag his feet. That's an NFL catch on the
Yes.
sideline right there.
Absolutely.
With his hands, they're out. He pulls it in. Does he catch that? Does he complete that when he goes to the ground?
Let's see. Hard to see,
Oh.
but I think he did.
Yeah, it looks like it comes out a little bit.
Let's see.
That was a weird fall, I'm not going to lie.
It looks like he hangs on to it and he rolls through it to at least hide most of it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, right here, great. You're right. Great awareness. I mean, look at that long step, and he's already waiting to, well, there we go. There's the long step and then the drag.
And he's able to keep his foot there,
Yeah.
uses his toes.
And so you can see how this guy could become a more complete receiver for sure. He's got more work to do. He needs it. I think he's going to need a year or two, or he's going to be or if he doesn't, it's because he's a very fast learner. But the physical ability is there, the ability to track the ball is there, ability to catch it, with his hands extended in tight coverage with people, playing him tight and getting physical with them. That's all there. And then I show this one. I think this is him blocking. You're going to see him. I mean, these are kind of easier blocks for wide receivers, but it's nice to see him get physical here and lay out the guy a little bit. I mean, that's kind of easy pickings. But,
yeah. And he's still eyeing him up too, like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But, you can
He's getting a little excited there.
Right. And then let's see if I got anything here that was, I think it was against Tennessee. Oh, this was a play. Again, this is one of these plays where when you run this type of little curl or, kind of stop short here, he and his quarterback also didn't look like they were quite on the same page on this, but the quarterback throws it to the outside. You can see that he stops here and he's not fully turned around. He's just kind of like turned and open to the inside. And as a result, the ball's too far to the outside for him to get. And I think this one's on Chark. It's kind of like if you're gonna make the turn, make the turn.
Yeah, exactly.
And
don't hesitate.
Yeah, and snap that turn, and especially with the safety flying up here, you snap that turn and get outside, and you're being able to catch this ball on the move. You're turning up the sideline here, because if and you have a better chance of maybe breaking this defender and going upfield for a much longer gain. And when you think about the coverage here, I mean, look at this.
Yeah,
he's got a touch. This is a touchdown. This is or at least a 30, 40-yard gain. And with his speed, it is probably a touchdown because, I mean, look, safety comes up. He's flying up here to take on the running back. And then he snaps that turn, and he's even a half step or a whole step further to the outside to catch that ball in stride and on the move like he does. And you've noted this so well, is that he's so good at being able to, he's so fluid at turning and so fluid on the move as a runner. He's just got to get better at this route. I mean, these just small details that separate a terrific athlete and good college receiver from being a really dynamic player in the NFL.
Yeah, a real elite player, and I think there's definitely more pros than cons. I can say that, and there are a lot of things that comes natural to him that may take other receivers a couple years to really understand. I think field awareness is something that you learn a little bit more in college, but I mean in the NFL. But with him, he already kind of has it, and some things are not teachable that he has. So I think those other little things like route running and really just having better confidence in what route you're going to run, maybe that comes with more experience.
Yeah,
too.
And just being able to devote more time to your craft as opposed to going to class and only having a certain number of hours of practice and just being in college. So
yeah, exactly.
And
you're a little bit more leaner too.
Yeah.
In college. So I really like wide receivers in their second year, and especially running backs. Because even though it's your first year in the NFL, you still don't have a lot of time. You don't have a true offseason until the second year. So
yeah, it's so true. And it's one of those things that, I mean, I talk about this a lot, and people are probably going to be tired of me talking about it who follow my stuff. But it's like I've always, it's just something that's such a salient point that I try and pound into people to understand is that, I remember talking to Ben Watson, the Saints tight end, and just asking him what was the difference between playing in the SEC and playing in the NFL. He said, I remember my first game with the Patriots and looking out on the field as people warming up and going, these are grown men who are paying for their mortgage and supporting their families. Like these are guys that you know, it's not like, oh, you dropped that ball, oh man, we lost the game. We're not, you know, the people who are
Hmm.
making the money aren't going to make more money anymore, aren't going to
Hmm.
make as much money. You know, oh, the school's not going to be able to get a weight room facility because I dropped this ball. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's kind of more of a look. You know, my family and the house that I'm paying for here. You know, you dropping that ball is affecting my ability to, you know, get my incentives or a bonus or things that are
Yeah.
going to help me out directly, you know, and
Hmm.
that pressure's different. So it's going to be interesting, you know, when you look at the league, you know, when we look at him, is it comes down to so many things that we don't see on film, which is what's his makeup, you know,
Yeah.
what kind of worker is he? Is he someone that handles adversity well? Is the pressure going to change from being at LSU
Hmm.
to being, you know, where you're a star, where everyone else is looking at you and going, now you're in the league and you're one of a lot of people who are stars in the league,
Yeah.
and they're also much
Hmm.
more critical of what you don't do well to try and be like, man, you got to get it together. You've got to do this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's less plays being taken off. Also, you
yeah,
know, when you think about one guy that's coming in because maybe the starter is hurt, this is his chance to prove himself.
yes, yeah,
So it's like he's trying to be able to feed his family. And you know, he has to make a play where that's why it gets so heated sometimes because it's like, come on, man, it's a run play. I'm out here blocking as a wide out. Like, don't try to push me or whatever. Well, no, man, you have to go 110% every single play,
yeah,
no matter what. When you take off, that's when injuries happen.
yeah,
When you become lazy, that's when injuries happen.
yeah,
So it's definitely it's a mindset too. You know,
yeah,
how do you handle the replacements when they say the quicksand? How do you handle it as a wide receiver? Then all you're doing is thinking about catching the ball, and you don't realize that now it's 30 times harder because you're thinking about it instead of just letting the ball come to you and catching it. And I think maybe that's something that he does a lot. He thinks too much and he's afraid to catch it with his hands.
yeah, yeah.
You know, the
Very,
security.
very possible, you know, and I think those are things that, like you said, with time, with experience, and then with effort, with effort, you know, to just refine his game. There's a lot there to like. It's just a matter
Hmm.
of whether that happens.
Yeah.
Lori, this was great. Where can we find you on Twitter? Where can we find your work elsewhere so that people can see what you're doing on a regular basis?
So you can follow me on Twitter at Laurie Fitzpatrick. My couple of vowels in my last name are taken off. Just a long Irish last name. Twitter doesn't like it. So, but you just type in Laurie Fitzpatrick, I'll come up and my football picture, trying to look all cool. But you can find me on Big Cat Country Film Room, SB Nation. I'm also I break down some film for Fourth and John for the Philadelphia Eagles with them. And really just finding me on Twitter, especially during the season, game by game, week by week. I'm doing pregame matchups, doing postgame reflection. I'm also on SoundCloud with a podcast called Ponytails Talking Pigskins.
Cool.
So you can also check me out on there.
Awesome. Yeah, and Lori does awesome work on Twitter. You see you know, the video work that she does is fantastic. I would definitely recommend following her. And obviously, you know, we had a fun time here on this show with you. So on behalf of Lori and myself, thanks again for tuning in. You can check out more RSP film rooms at the Matt Waldman's RSP Film Room channel. That's what we have it called now. I do have a podcast now. You can find me on iTunes, on Google Play, as well as Stitcher, and TuneIn. And I think it's coming to Spotify soon. That's the RSP Cast. And of course, www.mattwaldmanrsp.com. Thanks again, everyone.